Hey everyone, this is Brian Lee Davidson Tarka. I am reading through the Bible, particularly right now I'm reading through the Gospel of John, and even more particularly, I am reading the account of Jesus feeding the 5,000. So this is found in chapter 6 of John, and ooh, beep, I'm hearing Facebook things, and so are you. Okay, I'll have to get to that later. But Jesus feeds the 5,000. Chapter 6 of John. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is, the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. So Jesus is building this reputation as a healer, particularly this day of age of where medicine's at, that's a pretty big thing. When Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down with his disciples, the Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" Now I think this is one of these places, Jesus is God, he knows the bread situation. And he asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. How far will they go among so many?" So they're looking at what they have around them as a community, and, you know, this little boy has his lunch, 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Now, many suggest that this is. I've heard many people suggest that this is men. This is like men. That means there were more than 5,000 because they would have brought their families, just like Jesus had this community around him, and one of the community at the time was this small boy with a couple fishes and 5 barley loaves. Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in the place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they want. So Jesus is, out of these loaves and fish, he's given them all they want. That's something that's interesting. He did the same with the fish. It's also interesting to look here that this is God serving humanity. There's, despite the existence of an actual rank, Jesus is doing this service for an immense gathering. This is a huge gathering of people, and Jesus is starting the service. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, and let nothing be wasted." Okay, so not only that, after he does the serving himself, the disciples are doing the gathering. Okay, so the leaders are doing the serving. Not, I think this is a very, very important example. I think we are getting a clear look at servant leadership here. It's not something that we should ignore in any way. I think a lot of school teachers understand this aspect of servant leadership, but we all need to learn this. It's something that we need to focus on. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with pieces of 5 barley loaves left over from those who had eaten, and the 2 fish. It doesn't say the 2 fish bits, but we know the fish were involved. So, let's continue. After the people saw the sign Jesus perform, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again into a mountain by himself. Huh. So, Jesus had an army here. Jesus had an army of people that wanted to make him a theocratic king. But the example he put forth was an example of servitude. And in regards to earthly kingship, he withdrew. Jesus knew his position. He knew he was sent there by his Father to be an example of servant leadership. Now, you could argue that, well, he could have done this as king too. He could have been a servant leader as an earthly king. And, ultimately, Christians should want their kings to be servant leaders and not bullies. Well, some people may be saying this is the 21st century. What do you mean king? Okay, let's use a different word. Let's use president. Let's use senator. Let's use mayor. Let's use boss. Let's use teacher. Let's use supervisor. Okay. I think that something we're having that comes into light here is the question of, are the leaders in our lives being a leader, or are they being a boss? I think that this is something key that we have to be observing in our lives in general. Are we being led to a place of growth, or are we being bullied to make things happen a certain way? Are the processes that are happening constructive, or are they restricting without good reason? Currently, right now, I think that a lot of the world is listening to constructive instruction right now when they're being told, now's the time to stay home. Now is the time to be safe. And I think, I'm very thankful that a lot of people are listening to this. Really be careful when you think about going out. If you're older, maybe send somebody younger to go out to places like the supermarkets, like the markets, if you need to get food, maybe send the younger people out if you can, because they may be less susceptible. They can become a carrier, but you know, um, but they could be putting on hand sanitizer as they go from place to place, or as they get home. Make sure you use soap, wash your hands. So I think there's been a lot of constructive leadership. Now, I think that a lot of us may be coming from places where they've observed some destructive bossing. I don't even want to call it leadership, frankly. I think that there's a lot of destructive bossing that can come about in a variety of environments. It could come at the job, it could come at school, it could come at a club that you join for that you're supposed to be enjoying. It could come at church, Christians. It can come at church. It could come at spiritual institutions. And we need to be on our guard in regard to those things. Now, I think the opportunity, and sometimes we want that. We want that firm, solid direction. And I think that's what a lot of these people wanted. It's like, hey, you know what? Jesus is this nice guy. He should be our king. Let's make this happen. We're an angry mob of probably more than 5,000 people. Let's make him king. And Jesus was like, nope. I already am king, and this is not how it's going to work. To people that he just served. So I think we're getting a real strong look at appropriate service and appropriate motivation for being a leader versus the wrong motivation for being a leader. The wrong motivation for putting yourself first. And I'm thankful that Christ gives us the perfect example of that. Well, I think that's it for now. Come back tomorrow and you'll hear another video in the book of John, because that's what we're going through. And it looks like, I suspect there's going to be more miracles ahead. All right, you guys take care. Bye-bye.